We are joined by our bubble correspondent, Duncan Robinson of the Miami Heat. Duncan, tough loss today in Game 4. How strange was that game? Giannis goes down early. Middleton goes off in the second quarter. You had a great second half, hit some big shots. Tyler Hero hit some big shots. How strange of a game was that?
Yeah, it definitely had a weird flow to it. Giannis came out so aggressive. It was just so assertive. And then when he went down, there was kind of a period where I think some of the other guys kind of looking around, and then all of a sudden they realized that they needed to step up. And credit to them. I mean, they played well on both ends. We didn't have great flow offensively, which I thought hurt us in stretches. And then, defensively, we weren't as connected as we have been in this series. So credit to them. Obviously, we really wanted to close it out, but there's more basketball to be played.
Chris, is a hell of a player, but he hit some crazy shots today.
I mean, he's been hitting those in this series. They when Giannis is healthy and playing, they kind of go back and forth, and they kind of mix and match their units as well. So they both have times where they're like kind of the primary ball handler. But when Giannis went down, it basically just became they're just going to play through him. So he hit some big shots, especially down the stretch. He's one of the few guys that really feels more comfortable kind of in that mid-range area. But credit to him, man. He hit some big ones for sure.
You see this all the time, though, where a team's best player goes down and the other guys respond. I don't – sometimes in a regular season game when you're sitting there and you're getting ready to go out for warm-ups and you're in the pregame meeting and the coach comes in and he's like, such and such, their best player's not playing tonight. There's that – you let your guard down. You guys obviously are not going to let your guard down in the middle of a playoff series. Do you feel like you guys – I mean, you're back in the locker room after the game. I'm sure Spo's given you whatever he's given you, but as a unit, do you feel like you sort of let one slip away, like a golden opportunity to advance the conference finals and sort of put them away?
Yes and no. I think as a group, we felt that we probably didn't deserve to win that game, and that was kind of a unanimous. We're in unanimous agreement on that. In that. We probably didn't deserve to win, but with that being said, we still had a chance to win, and we could have stole it. So it's those are tough. I mean, we just got to learn from it and apply it tomorrow when we break it down, go over the film and all that sort of stuff, and just try to learn from it. But the opportunities are so few and far between at this level. You got to take advantage of them. So Tuesday or whenever it is, I guess it's Tuesday. We'll have to be a lot better. That's for sure.
Duncan, we haven't had you since the series started. Go back to Game 2 for a second with that crazy finish with the fouls on both sides. Yeah. What were you thinking about when that was happening? Because from a viewer's perspective, there's been a lot of crazy finishes. Obviously, the Toronto, Boston buzzer beater was wild, but in terms of like sort of frenetic switching, that game might take the cake so far in the playoffs.
Yeah, that was wild. I don't think I've ever seen a finish like that. I think both calls are questionable. I think both calls could have not been called.
Both calls were correctly called. They were both correctly called. Duncan,
listen
as
to your
as a shooter,
listen to your vet, man. Both calls were correct.
If I'm in the air and there's contact in the air, it's a foul. They're both fouls.
Could not agree with you more. And with that being said, though, they were still questionable, as in like they can be questioned. Like
on Twitter, yes, they can be questioned. By the rule book, those are both fouls.
Agreed. And if I get touched and when I'm in the air, there's probably a high percentage I'm going to fall on the ground, and then if it's not called, I'm going to turn to whoever it is and let them know that they missed one. So you're right. If I was in either scenario, if I was Chris Middleton or if I was Jimmy, I would have wanted a foul. But that doesn't change the fact that they're going to be highly debated. But at the same time, I mean, you could make the argument that they were both called and both teams kind of had the short end of the stick on those in particular calls, but the ball, it ended up turning out the way that it did. So we're not going to complain. I mean, it ended up in our favor. So.
Friend of the show, Jimmy Butler, has had two incredible sort of takeover moments so far. There was a clip that went viral that JJ retweeted the other day of him yelling, being like, "These are my fucking," whatever he said, "These are my fucking guys," just about you guys in a positive way, but sort of in his own Jimmy way that was very kind of aggressive. Have you had any funny Jimmy moments in this series so far?
I mean, he's just been super locked in. Just since the playoffs have started, I think he's raised his level. I'd also like to clarify that I think that clip that's going around is being misquoted. Jimmy loves us, obviously, and I think he thinks very highly of us, but he's not saying that about us. He's saying it about himself, that he's the best player. So I saw it on House Highlights. I saw it getting posted around, but it's actually getting misquoted a little bit. He reminds me consistently that we have the best player in this series. So he's a dog for sure. I think he's put it on full display.
I love that. Who are you talking shit to this series? I know you're yapping at somebody.
I've kind of kept to myself for the most part. I got into it actually with one of the refs today. I probably should have been quiet about that, but I don't know. I don't like force it if it's not there. If I don't feel it, I don't like chase it. I just kind of let it come naturally, because the moment you try to like overdo it or whatever, you just kind of end up throwing your rhythm off. So nothing yet.
Well, obviously you also have to play the team again. Most
exactly.
likely,
that's a different dynamic.
Playoffs are a little. So I wanted to ask you, because I know we talked about this briefly off camera last time we had you on, but what have you learned about the playoffs? From you personally, from your viewpoint, about what makes the playoffs so difficult and so different from the regular season?
I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is the game-to-game adjustments, and that if you're doing something in one game and you have success with it, it is. I'm sure that it's being talked about and addressed in meetings and in film. And more than likely, you need an adjustment to the adjustment, and that they're not just going to let you to continue to do the same things over and over. And that's coming from, against a team in Milwaukee who is incredibly stubborn with protecting the paint. But even they've tried to make adjustments towards what we've been able to do offensively. So I think you said it best, in that it just feels like one of those games where in the regular season, first of all, the last 4 or 5 minutes of the regular season is the entire game. Couldn't agree more with that. That was very spot on. And then the other one from a personal standpoint is a regular season game where you just feel like a team had a really good game plan against you. And it's pretty much every game. So it's definitely been an adjustment period. But I'm still just trying to, kind of stay persistent with it and pick my spots.
You're saying you specifically, they've got a game plan for you. They do it really well, but except in the playoffs, that's every game. They've got a great game plan for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's spot on. That's the playoffs to a T. The attention to detail goes up. The one thing you didn't mention, which I think is more prevalent probably in the last 3 or 4 years than it was even in early on in my career, is just like the playoffs now are about getting the ball in your best player's hands and then hunting matchups. And you just see it over and over again. We're going to bring up poor Sally, as Monty Williams used to say. We're going to bring up poor Sally. I've been guilty of being poor Sally. And we're going to put him in a pick and roll, and we're going to either make him switch or we're going to get him in show and see what happens from there.
Yeah, there's absolutely a lot of that, especially as games kind of wind down. You get into those later minutes and more pivotal possessions. But I mean, even against Indiana, they probably did it far more than Milwaukee has. Milwaukee did a lot today with Chris Middleton, but Indiana, because they're just such an attacking team with how they were playing without Sabonis, they were calling people up pretty much every possession. Even the first quarter, second quarter didn't matter. And I was oftentimes the guy that they were calling up. So it required me to, if I wanted to be on the floor, to just kind of be a pest on that end.
Tommy, before we get to the mailbag question, which Duncan is going to join us for this week, we should shout out Goran Dragic, because everybody's talking about Jimmy, everybody's talking about Bam. You've had some big moments. Tyler Hero's had some big moments. He's been, to me, with the exception of probably Jimmy, like your most consistent player in the playoffs. His numbers are off the charts. He's been honestly, when he's in the game, he's playing like a number one option in terms of his usage and his shot creating. He's just been phenomenal.
He is incredible. His like pace, and he's just always moving at his own speed. You can't speed him up. And he just has this ability around the basket to be creative, and whether it's throwing lobs or sprays or these floaters and kind of different step backs that he has. We always joke that he probably shoots a better percentage when he's like heavily contested too on threes. He loves those step backs, and he's carried us through big stretches. And is a huge reason as to why we've been able to have the success that we've had. So definitely got to give him a ton of credit. I appreciate you doing that.
JJ, this is a question for you as well. Duncan and I were talking the other day about just the Heat's depth, and the fact that you guys just have almost like a never-ending group of guys that come in. Everybody plays hard. Everyone knows their role. But it's not just 7 or 8. It's like you guys go 11 deep, which is unique even for a playoff team. But I think one of the things that people think about like in the playoffs is like the playoffs are when you want to have like your 7 guys, you know what I mean, and that's it, because like so why do you think you guys are sort of able to be like the exception to the rule on this rather than like most other teams? No matter how the regular season turns out, it's like you have your crew that you're rolling with and that's it.
I think the unique thing about our depth is that we have guys that bring different skill sets. So Kendrick, for example, when he comes off the bench, he started 95% of the games this year. He's basically a starter that we're bringing off the bench, and he's able to be really aggressive. We bring in other guys, Andre, Derek Jones, who are, just super versatile, Swiss Army knife defenders and can do different things defensively and also mix it up offensively as well. So I think that a big strength of our depth is that it's not like we're bringing in guys that are all the same or that sort of thing. Each guy kind of brings their own skill set. Tyler is obviously a big time shooter, but has become so much more dynamic with the ball as well. So we've kind of mixed and matched rotations a little bit in the playoffs. We've adjusted, but the depth you mentioned has been a huge key for us.
All right, Tommy, let's get to this week's mailbag question. Let's go. Let's see what it is. You keep holding these questions. You should keep holding these questions back from me.
JJ does not know this question. He's asked me no fewer than 7 times today for me to tell him the question, and I have not told it him once. Duncan also doesn't know the question, but doesn't ask me at all. So I think that tells you a little bit of a difference in their personality. Okay, from Christopher Zimmerman. First of all, he calls both of us prolific connectors. Thank you. He says, what are the podcast books that would most surprise people to learn that you like? Duncan, you start. Duncan's a big reader.
The podcast books?
Podcast / books, either or.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I
don't know if it's off the beaten path, but one of my favorite books, I've read it a couple of times now, is Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. Huge fan of him and everything that he's doing with the Equal Justice Initiative, and obviously given our current social climate, I think it's particularly important. But yeah, it's I don't necessarily like read a lot of fiction. I like the self-help type books, but that one in particular was something that I really enjoyed.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah, it is.
Everyone who's listening to this who's not read that should get it ASAP, because it's a pretty quick read. You'll roll through it. It's an amazing story, and he's just an amazing person when you look into what those guys have done.
All right, this isn't off the beaten path, but I really like coffee table books, and specifically, I really like coffee table books on architecture, and I have zero skills. There's no background there. I don't even know if I took an art class at any point in time. Like, I never took engineering, never did any of that stuff, but just super into architectural books. Wait,
books. What is it? What is an architecture book? Is it like blueprints?
I got like 4 right in front of me. So I have Robert Stillen, who's a New York City-based designer. He just came out with a book last year. I have Architectural Digest at 100, and then I have a book that was gifted to me while I was in New Orleans. It's a book on New Orleans architecture. Literally, my computer is resting on those 3 books. And if you look behind me, there's some other ones back there. By the way, switched venues, Tommy. For the YouTube viewer, I switched venues.
I know the bookshelf is gone.
I know.
Everyone was trying to figure out what was on there.
I'm back in Brooklyn for the start of school. Duncan, good luck. Hope you guys finish out the series. As I told you, when we had you on a couple weeks ago, I'm hoping for a long playoff run. And tell Buckets I said what's up.
I will, for sure. Appreciate you guys having me on.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man.
Thanks, man.
All right, man.
Later.